Yeah, I don't think he was forcing the ball. We didn't connect, obviously, as much as we would like to. I think it's a combination of things, and you got to really start with them. Give them credit. They made some plays, a couple balls. I'm sure Baker wants back. A couple routes. I'm sure Odell wants back. But that's the nature of this thing. We just got to make sure we work real hard this week, and then get out there Thursday night and put our best foot forward.
Hey, Kevin, when it comes to Odell, do you feel like you're still trying to figure out the best ways to use him?
I think we got a pretty good feel for Odell and his skill set. I mean, he's a talented football player, so it's our job to put him in position to make plays. Are we going to learn about him and what he's comfortable with, what we're comfortable with throughout the season? Yes, so that'll grow, but I think we have a pretty good sense of it right now.
And you've talked a lot about players, not plays. So at some point yesterday when he didn't have a catch, did you say, okay, now we got to figure out a way to involve Odell?
Well, I just look at it in that way, Scott. He's a good football player, so we want him to touch the ball. I think that's good for us. So we're mindful of all of our players in terms of how they're touching it. There were opportunities early where the coverage took it away or somebody else was open, those type of things. But he's a good football player, so I don't think it's newsworthy that he's a focal point of our offense.
Well, Baker Mayfield, there you go, 10 targets at Beckham, 3 receptions, just 22 yards. But are you at the point where you watch Beckham and you now see what, I don't want to say what the problems were, but the fact that there have been problems wherever else he's been? Do you see that beckoning here?
I don't think we can attach his production to his, unhappiness or his personality and the way he responds to things on the field at times. I think a lot of what he did back in New York in that light was after touchdowns, and it was kind of a look at me kind of player. I do think it's alarming though that these guys have had this much time together now, he and Mayfield, and we're still seeing some of the same issues that we saw last year. A lot of that got chalked up to injury, and I don't think that was a fair way to assess it. And I think this is pointing to that.
No, he had a big miss yesterday. Should have been a first down. His first reaction was to look at Baker like it was a bad pass. It wasn't a great pass, but it was certainly a pass that's in the NFL that's got to be caught.
Well, I get a little worried when I hear, guys like Keyshawn Johnson or whoever, kind of the big wide receiver talent guys who are no longer playing, when they start talking about how, Mayfield is the one that made Beckham look bad last year. I start thinking, I wonder where they're getting that from. Are they getting that from independent film study, or are they talking with other guys, receivers that in the league, if not Beckham himself? So that does nobody any good when that starts happening, because then then the quarterback feels even more pressure to get the ball to Beckham. And I thought that was one of the big issues last year, is that Beckham wasn't healthy, maybe wasn't running great routes, and still Mayfield felt the pressure to get him the ball, especially as games went on when he couldn't get him the ball. So they got to figure. I mean, he's just got to be part of the offense here. He's a great player, but you can't play the game that way. You can't play the game trying to force a guy into the offense. We've seen that happen here before.
If you're waiting to hear the dumbest question on the show, this will be it, so you can turn something else on after. Is it possible that the Browns have an embarrassment of riches at certain skill positions? In other words, might they be better off not worrying about Beckham and start worrying about the two-prong running attack and the short passing game with the tight end and the fullback? Or do you think they should double up everywhere they can?
Well, I think it's an unrealistic thing to build your team that way, and I felt that same way when they traded for Beckham and when they signed Landry. You're talking about two huge, Landry not so much, but you're talking about a lot of money tied up at that position, and I just don't see teams built that way anymore in this league. So I think that it can be a little counterproductive from an organizational standpoint. If the head coach can figure out how to make everybody happy on the field, then I think it can work. But it does take guys. You don't have to have Nick Chubb's personality to accept somebody else coming in and getting the ball all the time. But it certainly helps to have guys that know what their roles are, and starring roles at the same position are not always a way to go about it in the NFL, in my experience.